Hello and welcome to episode 3 of News and Politics with Jacob. My name is Jacob and I'm here again with my grandmother. So today we are going to be talking about the latest news stories from the past week or so. We didn't get to do a video last week, so I do have some stories that were more relevant last week, but I thought it would still be good to talk about them. So let's start things off with just some quick stories. So in the newest recent polls, according to CNN, Clinton is polling at 45%, Trump at 35%, Johnson at 9%, and Stein at 5%. So those are the latest polls according to CNN. Third-party candidates Gary Johnson and Jill Stein lost a lawsuit to be in the presidential debates. Donald Trump is making voter ID laws as part of the 2016 election in 13 states, still having voting restrictions for the first time ever in a presidential election. And according to MSNBC, this is a quote from them, tens of thousands of Delta passengers around the world were grounded Monday after a power outage at its Atlanta headquarters caused by a global system-wide computer failure. And Delta, I believe, is the second largest airline in the U.S. Okay, and more than 70 people are dead in a bombing at a Pakistan hospital. The explosion took place at 9:30 local time, 12:30 Eastern on Monday. The Pakistan Taliban has claimed responsibility for the blast. They targeted lawyers and journalists in the hospital who mourned the death of, I'm going to butcher this name, but Bilal Kasi. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but he was gunned down earlier in the day. So, as well, Apple made a stance on gun control by replacing the gun emoji with a toy water gun. They will also be adding more than 100 new emojis to try to create a more gender-diverse keyboard. And, I know we said this in another video, but Melania Trump might actually be illegal.
Oh my goodness, really?
I didn't write down the specifics, but I remember it. Basically, Donald Trump is saying she came in 1996. However, because new nude photos of her were released that were taken in 1995, they say the story that Melania Trump would travel back and forth between the United States and Slovenia every 6 months to renew her visa. But if that was in that visa that they were talking about, she wouldn't be able to work here. But with an H-1B visa, which would be the correct visa for someone like her to work here, she wouldn't have to go back and forth. And she did become a citizen in 2001 or 2002, believe, I forget. But because of the possible visa fraud, that would result in someone not being able to become a citizen. So there's some...
Oh my goodness. Of all the people.
Of all the people.
Of all people. Well.
So anything you want to say quickly about those quick news stories I just...
Oh my goodness, I don't know. The first one, so quickly. What was the first one now?
The first couple were about the newest polling. We have another story about that later. But third-party candidates Gary Johnson and Jill Stein lost a lawsuit to be in the presidential debates. Donald Trump is pushing the voter ID laws, and in 13 states they still have voting restrictions, which is the first time ever in a presidential election.
And is that Donald Trump instigated the voting restrictions?
I'm not sure, but that's what he's pushing for voter ID. And tens of thousands of Delta passengers around the world were grounded. We heard about that.
Oh, I did.
A lot about that in the news. And I'm just going to quickly go over these again. More than 70 people died in a Pakistan hospital from the Taliban. And Apple changed their emoji keyboard.
Okay, first of all, I don't care about the emoji keyboard. Okay, the important thing, of course, a lot of important things. There seems to me, as long as I can remember in my lifetime, and I imagine way before, there's always been trouble in the Mideast. And people now, it seems as though it's just escalating. Maybe it's because that's how it's meant to be, always problems in the Mideast. And the more we get involved in it, the more it seems to escalate. It seems to get bigger, or at least it becomes some big news stories. Those, it seems to me those people just have no peace within them. They're always fighting about something. And if that's the case, I'm hoping that we would just be able to pull back a little bit. Because I hate to think that we're going to be fighting over there for the next 15, 20 years as we have since 2003 when we invaded.
Okay. Try to project a little more. Again, remember.
Okay.
All right.
Way before you were born, Jacob, there was trouble in the Middle East. I mean, way before I was born, there's been trouble in the Middle East. There are warring factions that seem to always be violent. And I don't think we belong interfering or getting involved in it. I don't understand our reasoning for it, but nonetheless.
Okay. So let's move on to our first story. We have a lot of big, long stories today to cover. Hillary Clinton holds a significant lead in major swing states. So this is a quote from CNN. In New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, states that have trended Democratic in recent elections, but whose economics and demographics seem to pose an opening for the GOP nominee, Clinton has made strides in improving her favorable ratings, while Trump remains challenged by high unfavorable ratings and resistance from a significant portion of Republicans. So let me give you some polls right now.
Right, okay.
So in New Hampshire, Clinton is polling at 47%. Trump is polling at 32%. Clinton is in the lead by 15 points there. In Pennsylvania, Clinton is at 49%. Trump is at 38%. That's an 11-point lead. In Michigan, Clinton's at 41%. Trump is at 32%. That's a 9-point lead. Still pretty significant. And in Florida, Clinton is at 48%, while Trump is at 42%. Still a 6-point lead. So what's your opinion right now on the major polls?
I'm glad you used the words right now, because these things change daily or at least weekly. And it's still a long way to November, and a lot of things can happen. But if it continues on this course, Trump, the more upset he gets and the more frustrated he gets, the more verbal he gets, and the more trouble he gets himself into. I don't know whether he will listen to his advisors and pull back and stop beating a dead horse like he always does. Interestingly, I listened to a program on an interview on TV the other day, a man who was formerly a big official in the CIA, and he said, Trump keeps saying how Putin likes him, and Putin... So he turns around and says he likes Putin. And this CIA, because if you stroke Trump, that's all you need to do. But this CIA guy said Putin's playing Trump. He's playing up to him. And Trump needing so much stroking is taking him at his word that he likes him. And really and truly, the guy is just making a fool out of Trump.
Okay. In a McClatchy Marist poll, again, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right again, and this is for millennials under the age of 30. Here are the current polls. Hillary Clinton is polling at 41% of voters under the age of 30. Gary Johnson is polling at 23% of voters under the age of 30. Jill Stein is at 16%. And then Donald Trump is in fourth place with a mere 9 percentage points.
Now, this is millennials.
For people under the age of 30.
Under the age of 30.
Now, this was a fairly small sample size, but I think it is still worth looking at because a lot of people, you know, they're going towards the third party candidates. There are 39% of people under the age of 30 said they would either vote for Gary Johnson or Jill Stein. I thought that would be significant, worth saying. And I know people say they're insignificant, but I think if they become viable candidates later down the road, then I think they will actually play a significant role in this, especially since both of the major party candidates do have significant unfavorable ratings still.
Okay, my question to you is this. Have they enough votes to be on the ballot? Are they going to be on the ballot in November?
Yes, they will be on the ballot.
They will be.
They will be on the ballot, but they aren't officially in the debates. That you need to pull at 15%. And I think there might be another story about that coming up.
Okay. If they are on the ballot and things are going the way they're going, they might be able to tilt the elections depending on how close. Don't forget, polls are like weather.
Yes.
If you don't like it, wait a minute.
Yes, in previous elections, I believe third-party candidates, they actually polled, significant, a fairly amount higher than they actually did on election day. Their numbers actually decreased.
Decreased on election day when people are in the real world. Well, it would be a shame for for one of those people to be able to tilt the election from one to another.
However, it is saying that Gary Johnson and Jill Stein, they pretty much have an even distribution from the Republican and from the Democratic side.
Oh, they do. Oh, well, then maybe. Because you don't want a minority candidate, somebody who couldn't possibly on his own win, be able to affect the actual outcome of the election. Do you know what I'm trying to say? That would be a pretty dangerous situation.
And in other news, we were just watching TV and they said a previous CIA director is now going towards some type of independent run.
Yes,
we saw that.
Yep, and he would have a lot foreign policy experience, so he would be able to say what he thinks, and it might make a difference.
Well, was it 2000 where we saw a third party get a significant amount of the vote?
No, in 2000 it was where Bush and Gore.
Or it was somewhere around there. There was an independent who ran one year.
Ross Perot. Yes, and he did get a significant amount. Enough, I think, to change the face of politics. I don't remember. I don't think he. No.
It was I want to say it was like 20% or something, though, right?
Probably. But where would that 20% have gone if you took him out of the equation? That's what you're going to wonder about.
That's the thing right now about like the Gary Johnson. He evenly has, half of his supporters who might have been like Ted Cruz fans, half of his supporters might have been like Bernie Sanders fans.
I see. So they're the fringes, way out there, people. Okay.
Well, not way out there, but who just want to make a stance that they don't want to vote for those two.
Okay, I get that.
So let's move on to another story. An unnamed source claims Trump asked why the U.S. can't use nuclear weapons to a foreign policy expert advising him. So, according from CNBC, this is a quote, "Several months ago, a foreign policy expert on the international level went to advise Donald Trump, and 3 times Trump asked about the use of nuclear weapons. 3 times he asked at one point, if we had them, why can't we use them?" Scarborough said on his Morning Joe program. So the host asked Michael Hayden, who was a CIA director from 2008 to 2009 during the George W. Bush presidency, how quickly nuclear weapons could be deployed. He replied, "It's scenario dependent, but the system is designed for speed and decisiveness. It's not designed to debate the decision." So Ron Rosenbaum in 2011 said, "Any president could, on his own, leave a room, and in 25 minutes, 70 million, or more than that, would be dead." What is your opinion right now on Trump and nuclear weapons?
I'm terrified.
Because he wouldn't need Congress.
No, but I think he
he would need Secretary of Defense or something, I think.
It's not going to, it can't just be him. I think there are fail-safe mechanisms in there. Say he went completely nuts, you just pushed the wrong button, and Putin or somebody just drove him absolutely up the wall. He cannot go over on his own and have the bombs detonated. I think there are fail-safe measures in place to...
But then what he could do is he could just go over and then fire those people, say, you agree with me, you're now...
I don't think you can just fire those people without... I mean, it's not it should not be an impulsive thing. But the fear with Donald Trump is that
when you have someone who, when they get poked by a tweet and they lose it, you're going to trust them with that?
No.
Anyways, so...
No, that, if nothing else, would be reason to not vote for Trump.
So, my big problem with this is, of course, this is, not a primary source, but he asked, why do we have them if we don't use them? Which is scary. Because the reason we had them is for defense, or to sort of, scare other countries, sort of saying, if you come after us and we find out, we're coming after you right away.
Right.
And that is why we just spent trillions of dollars on nuclear weapons. All right. A student in Virginia may be temporarily blocked from using the boys' bathroom by the school board while the U.S. Supreme Court fight over transgender rights. So this is the first case to ever reach the Supreme Court regarding transgender bathroom rights. Gavin Grimm, born as a female but identifies as a male. Quote from Reuters, that ruling by the 4th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals was the first by an appeals court to find that transgender students are protected under federal law that bars sex-based discrimination. In court papers last month, the school board's lawyers said the 4th Circuit wrongly deferred to the view of President Obama's administration that prohibitions on sex discrimination under federal law also apply to gender identity. So in May, the Obama administration directed public schools nationwide to allow transgender students to use bathrooms that correspond to their gender identity, or risk losing federal funding.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is your opinion on this now that this, the bathroom issue, which has been, so heavily going on in the South, that it's now reaching the Supreme Court and, the school board and, the courts, they're sort of clashing a little bit?
First of all, the Supreme Court has minus one judge, therefore they're practically useless. 4 vote this way, 4 vote that way, and that's the way it's going to be till we get a new judge to replace Judge Scalia. Is this a Supreme Court issue? Probably more than the Deflategate would have been a Supreme Court issue.
You're still on that?
Oh, but I suppose it is.
So do you think transgender people should be able to go to the bathrooms they identify with?
Yes.
Okay, I agree with that too. And I also agree with Obama's decision, if you're a public school, you have to allow these people to go in the bathrooms that they, identify with, or else you're not going to get funding from us anymore.
Well, if you were in the men's room and a person walked in a dress and a wig and lipstick and makeup and high heels, wouldn't you feel a little awkward?
Exactly. So that brings up the point, if you're in the female bathroom and say, you're a female, but you identify as male, but you're forced to go into the female bathroom and you look all like a male, then it brings up the case where, they get scared, they, call the police or whatever, and then you have someone in there and they're in the correct one based on, what the facility, is saying to people. And you bring up that problem and then, how are you going to figure that one out when really they're in the bathroom that they're supposed to be in?
I have to think back to my little grandmother from Sweden. Oh my goodness gracious, if she ever knew what has gone on, what has transpired along those lines, she would just absolutely be floored. But we take it as, well, that's how it is, therefore, you have to make a decision on it. No, what you identify as is where you should be going.
Well, you want to make people feel comfortable. And, Republicans bring up the case, oh, well, those transgender people, they're going to do things in there. But, do you really have a poll on that? I'm sure, Donald Trump, they want to attack you in the bathroom.
Well, you can't bring
see how big your hands really are.
Yeah. Oh my God! Well, you can't bring a camera into the bathroom, so I don't know. Well, the only other thing would be a unisex bathroom, which would bring up even more problems. No.
I don't think there should be one. I think maybe one for kids, for their parents to go in there and change their diaper and stuff.
Oh yeah, that of course has to be.
Yeah.
Or when they're little bitty, you got to go in with your mother because you're not going to send a little 2 or 3 year old alone into the men's room. Anyway, anyhow, I think it's whatever you feel you identify with, that's where you go. Well, you're only in there for a little while anyway. Just do your business and leave.
And then they say, well, people are going to dress up and pretend to be, that they're transgender and all that stuff. As Joe Biden would say, all that malarkey.
All that malarkey. I'm with Joe. I like Joe.
Okay. Human rights activist, I'm really bad with names, sorry. Ahama Baraka has been selected by Jill Stein, the Green Party's nominee, as her running mate. So Stein described Baraka as an activist, writer, intellectual, and organizer with a powerful voice, vision, and lifelong commitment to building true political revolution. Now, according to Politico, Baraka was the founding executive director of the U.S. Human Rights Network and coordinator of the Black Left Unity Network's Committee on International Affairs. He has also been served on the boards of Amnesty International and the National Center for Human Rights Education. Baraka is a vocal opponent of the death penalty, and Stein has been declared the official Green Party nominee on August 6th. That was their convention. And she currently polls at 3 to 5%, and I believe she is scheduled to have a town hall later this month on CNN. So now, let's talk a little bit about Jill Stein and, the Green Party. So I don't necessarily agree with all of her plans, like forgiving all student loan debts, and how, she questioned vaccines and how, the government might be trying to pull something on us with the vaccines. But I do think she deserves a spot on the stage for a debate to show a more array of views. However, she'll need a 15% in the polls, which looks very unlikely, but you never know. Because Bernie Sanders, he started off with a large disadvantage. Hillary Clinton was probably the most well-known candidate going into this election. I mean, he was 50 points behind her, and, he almost made it up. He was very close. So I would recommend you definitely read her policies on her website. I like how she's trying to move towards renewable green energy, because I do think that is a big problem. But there are a couple things that are a little iffy about. What's your opinion on Jill Stein?
I haven't really studied her because she's not going to win. She's not really even in contention. But if her ideas are out there, like anybody else has the right to express their ideas and opinion, I just don't want it to take up so much of the time that should be allocated to figuring out which of the two top candidates we should be thinking about. Ideas are always good. And a new idea is always good to at least listen to. But we're past that now. We're down to 2 people. And all this other stuff is just taking away.
I think Cenk Uygur has a really good point. He is the host of The Young Turks, which is a big media show online. He says, until one of them is a viable candidate,
Exactly.
we have to focus on the two major party candidates, unless someone like Gary Johnson gets to 15% and is in the debates. Then we would have more of a consideration of someone like that. But right now, if they're only polling 5%, because right now she's at 3 to 5% in all of the polls, I wouldn't consider that yet viable. I think she's an option, and you should look up her policies and understand what she stands for. Now, she says she wants to forgive all student loans with quantitative easing, just like, we, with the big banks. But that's trillions of dollars of student loan debts.
Okay.
The big banks, I don't think it was as much of that. So yeah.
Sure.
And with the vaccines, everyone should get vaccinated. She just said, she sort of just fueled the fire, saying, saying, if you have something against vaccines, it's okay. I'm not against you, but I'm not for you.
There's always people saying
But that's the Green Party, though.
That's the Green Party, and I don't think we'll ever, in your lifetime or your children's lifetime, will see a Green Party candidate in the White House.
Really?
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 That's a big statement.
No, it's not a big statement.
I think that's a pretty big statement.
Well,
But also what a lot of people didn't know was, I was watching The Sane Progressive, and I found out that the Green Party convention was actually a contested convention. There were other people still running. Jill Stein was the presumptive nominee, but there were other people still there, and I didn't realize that. I don't think it was that important news, but it was just I was very oblivious on that, so it's I didn't know that. I thought that was interesting.
do you think on November 9th any of that is going to matter?
No, but I think it's worth covering.
Yes. Like I say, ideas are good to get out.
Maybe at least 30 seconds, 60 seconds.
If that, okay, all right.
Instead of having the camera on a Trump podium for 20 minutes, waiting for Donald Trump to speak, and everyone saying Donald Trump is gonna speak. What is he gonna say next? This crowd is wild. Maybe take 2 minutes of that time and just say the Green Party's having a convention. It's a contested convention. Presumptive nominee Jill Stein, Victor Vice President running mate. This is all cool. She's only polling at 4%. Now back to Trump's podium.
Okay.
Just my opinion.
The clock's ticking, and people don't want to listen this long. Go ahead.
All right. Let's get away from the third parties. Trump received a Purple Heart as a gift and said it was much easier. Donald Trump said.
Sure it was.
Donald Trump said, "Man, that's big stuff. I always wanted to get Purple Heart." No, that's Melania. Sorry. This was much easier. So Purple Hearts are awarded to people wounded during military service. And now let's talk about Trump in the Vietnam War.
5 deferments.
He had 5 military deferments.
5.
4 were from education, and when he got out of college, he had 1 injury deferment.
No, he had flat feet or something like that.
Yeah, something about bones or his ankle. Trump talked about having a high lottery number in the draft, yet if he had an exemption, his lottery number would be irrelevant. So the Khan father, his story will be coming up soon, told him to give the Purple Heart back.
Amen. Amen. And he's the same guy who said that John McCain was not a hero. Oh, please. Don't even go there.
He was talking about all of his wild, crazy parties he was going to and when the Vietnam War was going on.
Who's
Donald Trump. I think, I forget where. It might have been in his book or something.
Uh-huh. Read that book. The Art of the Deal or something like that. Read it just so you get an idea of what you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm. All right. Up next, on Saturday at the world's largest water slide in Kansas, a 10-year-old boy died. So the boy was a son of a state representative. This is under investigation still. And I don't think if it's clear yet. I got this information earlier. They might have more information on it. If the boy fell off or not yet. So the family was at the water park. It was elected officials day. And now the park is closed. And the park is also in the Guinness World Record book for the tallest water slide. I can't pronounce it. It's German, but VERRUCKT is the water slide. In English, it basically means insane, and they market it as, the insane water slide. If you're insane, you gotta check this water slide out. So the water slide goes up to 65 miles per hour. And it's 169 feet tall, which means it's taller than the Empire State Building, taller than the Statue of Liberty in Niagara Falls.
I got it.
Anything you want to say about that?
Oh, yes. The father of this 10-year-old child is a public servant. Don't run for re-election.
I think this is going to reflect badly on you.
Don't run for re-election.
We shouldn't laugh about it, but... Because you had to be 14 and up, I believe. You had to be a certain height, a certain weight. Yet he somehow got up there.
Well, I imagine his parents put him on. I mean,
No, his parents weren't there. He was on with his cousins or something, because it's a 3-person tube. And they go down the slide.
But they were in the park.
Yeah.
And they didn't say, no, you cannot go on that slide to the kid or to the people with the kid.
Well, they might have. It's still under investigation.
Oh, they got to run and talk to the lawyer about how the best way to get out of that looking not like a complete idiot. Shame on them. I mean, really, shame on them is all I can say. And I don't see do you see any useful purpose for having a water slide bigger than the Empire State Building?
It's for the thrill seekers, they say. It's not for just the casual person. It's for the wild thrill seekers like the people in the hot air balloon.
I can't even talk. I just think it's the most awful thing. One of the most awful things I've ever heard. That and what happened another time with another crazy thing that went on and a lot of people got killed recently. One of those risk-taking things. It was in the news maybe a couple of weeks ago. Find your thrills in logical ways. Don't put your...
Read books, people.
No. I think
Make videos like us.
I think the parents should be put in jail.
Really?
Well, think about it. They let him go on this.
But then you have to say, what about, the park attendees that should have been on the slide?
What about the Velcro straps that didn't hold? That's
So now maybe is the park accountable? Do they sue the park?
No. The parents are accountable. The parents are responsible. He was not of an age to go on the thing, number one. But yet, they let him.
Well, it's like, you go to a playground and you say, oh, go off, kids, have fun. And then you're just reading your newspaper or whatever.
This is a little more dangerous than a playground. This isn't just swings and you slide.
Yeah, but it was a fun water park, and it happened to have, the world's largest water slide.
Yes, and what was the name of the water slide translated into English?
Insane.
Well, there you are. Shame on the parents. Something should be brought against them for permitting their child to go on it in violation of the requirements. The 14-year-old. You're 14. Would you go on something like that?
No, I would not.
Hope not. Okay.
On last Tuesday in Ashburn, Virginia, so more Donald Trump said, I love babies. I hear that baby cry.
Oh.
I like it. Then, later, he kicked the baby out of the room. So when referring to a distressed mother with a crying baby, he said, what a baby. What a beautiful baby. Don't worry. The mom's running around like, don't worry about it. It's young and beautiful and healthy, and that's what we want. The baby continued to cry, and less than 2 minutes later, he says, actually, I was joking. You can get the baby out of here. I think she really believed me that I love having a baby crying while I'm speaking. That's okay. People don't understand. That's okay. So Tim Kaine, Hillary Clinton's running mate, was speaking about the incident later on Tuesday, saying, "You wonder who the baby is." So here's my opinion. I thought Republicans were the family valued party, the Save Our Children party. Yet he's kicking babies out of a conference. And it seems like every time he talks, there is some type of distraction. If there was a fly in the room, he would probably request someone to swat it.
I have to just say, given all of his outbursts, and is he seriously running for president? Or is this just, this is my new reality show, and good grief,
That's why some people like him. He's playing the media because he's, saying all this type.
I get that, but this is a little more serious.
Ludicrous.
This is a little more serious than the media. I can't imagine that this man is seriously wanting to be president and yet keeps tripping over himself all the time, tripping over his tongue all the time. It just amazes me. Me.
Well, my question is, why did so many people cheer after he kicked the baby out of the conference? If he was such a great father, according to his kids in their RNC speeches, wouldn't he be understanding towards the woman? Because you have to understand, sometimes the situation and crying just can't be resolved. But maybe the baby was so sick of his speech he wanted to get out of there.
Yeah.
That's what I think. Now,
baby's smarter than all the rest of the people in the room. That.
I do think the mother did speak after. And of course she was at this Trump whatever it was, conference speech. So she later said, "Well, this was blown way out of proportion. I didn't take it personally. They made it look so bad." But I still think, they say, well, we're so well-moraled. Yeah, look what you're doing.
I just one more Trump, just one more headline, just one more. But I would think that the American public would be so sick and tired of this man. I mean, more ways to get press to focus on you without having to pay for it. Mm-hmm. And I swear that's what he's doing. But at a point in time, we're going to say, I'm sick of this. Hillary doesn't have to say boo. Trump's going to ruin it for himself, and that's the way it is. And if he does get, by any remote possibility, get in, I shudder for. Is this what we want representing us? Is this how we want to look to the world? Will they even respect us?
A lot of countries don't.
And I can see why.
Okay. During a press conference with Singapore Prime Minister, Obama talked about the TPP, saying, "Right now, I am president, and I'm for it, and I think I've got the better argument. I've made this argument before, and I'll make it again. We are part of a global economy. We're not reversing that." So this remark referred to Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, who oppose the TPP. The TPP is a trade agreement, Trans-Pacific Partnership, between Australia, Brunei, I don't know how to pronounce that country.
Brunei.
I'm sorry. Canada, Chile, Japan, Malaysia, Mexico, New Zealand, Peru, Singapore, the US, and Vietnam. And 6 other nations are looking to join. So together, these nations account for more than 40% of the world's trade. Now, I believe this deal was to get China in line because the current economic power / potential China has, apparently, all these countries, including the US, find that, troublesome. So the Huffington Post says, the TPP has the backing of many powerful corporations, as well as the corporatist politicians they financially support. It would require nations with previously closed economies to liberalize. Its provisions on labor organizing, for example, requires nations to allow workers to unionize for more rights and better treatment. The TPP will also create a framework for expanding and enforcing existing international environmental protection agreements. These are clear economic benefits to removing tariffs and other barriers that restrict global trade. The TPP would expand American trade opportunities with participating countries and lead to greater efficiency, lower costs, increased variety for consumers, and an overall growth in GDP. Obama said, "I've got some very close friends, people I admire a lot, but who I disagree with them. And that's okay. I respect the argument they're making. They're coming from a sincere concern about the position of workers and wages in this country. But I think I've got the better argument." With Obama's clock ticking, many questions arise whether the push for the TPP will continue. And, quote from CNN, "But Congress has shown little urgency in moving forward with a vote to ratify the deal, leaving in limbo one of Obama's signature foreign policy objectives." Claiming that...
I don't get it.
I have more. I'll explain it more.
You gotta make it less because people need. I don't understand. Does this mean?
I'll read it slower. I'll get into.
No.
There's more details.
When I go into the Dollar Tree, am I going to pick up something that says "Made in Brunei" instead of "Made in China"? Is that basically?
The whole point of this was, to improve some environmental protections and, for workers to unionize more and, more ways to internationally trade. But there are a lot of cons to this, and I'm about to get into that.
Well, we're running late. It's 41 minutes already. People will be tired of listening to it. But I just want to know, do you think with all of this business, there will ever be a store that says the products say "Made in USA"?
No, well, that's not the point of this trade agreement. The point of this trade agreement is for more international trade against China. Because everyone right now is scared of how much power China has. So when these Pacific countries, the countries that border the Pacific Ocean, come together, what they're looking for is to trade more with each other and have more of a centralized world economy and flow.
But what do we make that we export to them? A trade agreement means a balance, I would think. I'll do this for you, you do that for me. But are we manufacturing enough in this country to even be part of an agreement like this? Or has it all gone abroad?
Well, a lot of those countries, they import stuff to us, though.
They send us stuff.
Yeah.
They make it and send it
They make stuff and sell stuff in America.
Same as China.
Yeah.
In other words...
But China has so much power,
okay.
We want, distributed more and for the U.S. to have more power.
Well, I think until we can start really making things to export... We don't have a whole lot of power under those. It just seems...
Okay, but I didn't even get to the bad points yet. So, claiming the deal would destroy jobs, delegates voiced a strong anti-TPP sentiment at the DNC. That's why you saw the no TPP and the TPP crossed out sign. Obama also said the answer isn't to turn inward and embrace protectionism. We can't just walk away from trade in a global economy where our economies and supply chains are deeply integrated. It's not even possible. So, I took a good 2 hours researching the TPP and taking notes, and I am personally against the TPP. So, most people's concerns about the TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership, include internet privacy, labor rights, access to affordable healthcare, food safety, environmental protections, more offshoring of jobs, and lower wages. So the TPP deal has been 5 years in the making, and one of many people's problems is how shady it has been. And only the information we have received while it was in the making was from, leaks, WikiLeaks. However, big corporations were in on this deal.
Oh. Okay.
So my main concern with this is medicine prices. So TPP gives Big Pharma an increased amount of time they can have on their patented drug. So what this means is it disallows the generic drug, which is significantly less, to compete with it, and gives major drug companies a monopoly.
Oh no.
As well, it allows them to extend this patent for innovation to the drug, when in reality, minimal to almost no change could be done to the drug, and they'd still have the patent on it. This would cause people, especially the working class, to not afford their medications. You wouldn't be able to buy the affordable generic, and it could be up to 20 years, depending on how long the period is, until a generic could be released, because the big pharma has the monopoly on it.
Right, I get that.
So, and since this trade agreement would be in all the countries included in it, developing nations like Vietnam, who already may not be able to afford healthcare, could be hit even harder with this trade agreement. So, the corporate influence involved is very transparent because the TPP essentially allows corporations to sue the government in secret foreign tribunals to demand compensation for laws and regulations that affect their profits. So this is a quote again from the Huffington Post. States offering public health care could face lawsuits from big pharma and insurance companies claiming that national healthcare systems restrict their investment opportunities. The TPP essentially grants corporate interests veto power over sovereign nations' domestic economic policy. So another effect includes being jailed or fined for downloading copyrighted movies and music, and internet survivor providers being required to watch your online activity. So again, internet privacy. So what I did not like about what Obama said is basically he wasn't specific at all. He was saying, I have the better argument. And to me, it came off really condescending. He basically said, I'm president. I don't care. I'm for the TPP. So those are my main concerns. There were others. What is your takes right now on the TPP? That was a lot to digest.
That was a lot to digest.
But the TPP was so complicated because it's been so long in the makings.
Okay.
And it was just released earlier this year.
Okay. My take on that is, don't so confuse the issue that we don't understand the bones of it at all. I don't. I just feel the more things we can get back into America to manufacture, the better our country will be. And I know that's simple.
Well, they branded this deal as a free market trade agreement. Yet, the only ones it's really helping, in my opinion, is the big international corporations. Because this is basically giving them the right to sue the government if they make any laws or regulations against their company. So, for example, in Vietnam, they have a lot of shrimp there. And some of the shrimp is actually grown in human waste. And they give chemicals to process it. And this would essentially give them, the opportunity to sue the government for making them regulate this, even though it was grown in human poop. Which is pretty disgusting. And again, for healthcare, that's a big problem. And we've already seen cases like this with, tobacco cases, gas cases. There was some type of nuclear explosion in Germany. And they're suing, I don't know if it's still in the process or it passed already, in Germany, they sued the government, I forget how much, but billions of dollars because they put nuclear energy regulations into play. So they sued the government millions of dollars because of that.
Mm-hmm. No, I would think, first of all, they've got to simplify it so that the average person like me will understand it better. And so I can't tell you what I think about it.
It's so untransparent.
Yes, it's ridiculous.
Now, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump say they oppose the TPP.
Well, I'm beginning to think I do too.
But Hillary Clinton, before, when she was under Obama's wing, was in support of the TPP until all of the Bernie Sanders supporters and many of her supporters came out against it. Donald Trump is against it, but honestly, he's not going to do anything about it.
He wouldn't understand this.
And I personally don't think Hillary Clinton's going to do anything about it.
Nobody can understand it.
So this deal is just going to fall through. Obama said,
simplify it.
After the election, in that downtime, he's going to somehow pass it. I don't think so. But let's pray that this does not pass. Okay. So we're getting long. Let's try to be under an hour. We have one last story I want to cover. More Donald Trump. So Donald Trump last week in a lot of fire. It's time to talk about the Khan family.
Go ahead.
Donald Trump has received serious backlash after his feud with the Khan family, who lost their son during the Iraq War. According to ABC News, in his first response to searing charge at the Democratic National Convention from Kaiser Khan, the father of a Muslim soldier killed in Iraq, that he sacrificed nothing for his country. Donald Trump claimed that he sacrificed by employing thousands and thousands of people. Also, he suggested that Khan's wife Ghazala Khan, excuse me if I'm not pronouncing that right, didn't speak at the convention because she was forbidden to as a Muslim, and questioned whether Khan's words were his own. Who wrote that? Did Hillary Clinton's speechwriters write that? Trump said in an interview with ABC News with George Stephanopoulos, "I think I've made a lot of sacrifices. I work very, very hard." Gold Star father Kaiser Khan and his wife gave a speech on U.S. Army Captain Humayun Khan, their son, who was killed in 2004 by a car bomb in Iraq during the DNC. Kaiser Khan criticized Trump for wanting to ban foreign Muslims from entering the country. He said their son would not have been able to serve under a Trump presidency. Go look at the graves of brave patriots who died defending the United States. You will see all faiths, genders, and ethnicities. You have sacrificed nothing and no one, Khan said. Trump replied by also saying, "If you look at his wife, she was standing there. She had nothing to say. She probably, maybe she wasn't allowed to have anything to say. You tell me." So this is a far-right opinion, which was later addressed by the Khan's wife, and she said she was too emotional to speak, and just standing there was, enough support and power into this. I understand that as well. So this is a quote from ABC News. Paul Rikoff, I'm bad with names, the founder and CEO of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of Americans, a nonpartisan group with over 200,000 members, with close to 200,000 members, said, "For anyone to compare their sacrifice to someone who has never served himself and has no children serving, our country has been at war for a decade and a half, and the truth is, most Americans have sacrificed nothing. Most of them are smart and grounded enough to admit it." So my opinion is, how can you say such idiocy? This is the perfect example of someone giving up literally everything, their life, to America. How can you be any more patriotic? If that's not patriotism, I don't know what is. It just so happens to be they're a Muslim. But that shouldn't take away from the fact that they gave everything for Americans. You don't go to some Christian grave and degrade them for being part of the KKK. Instead of having any empathy for them, Donald Trump blames them and Islam. The point of his speech was to say, don't say all Muslims are radical terrorists, yet he stereotypes them and says, well, the wife wasn't saying anything. It probably has to do with Islam. You know how those Muslims are.
Can I just say, get a word in here, Jake?
Yep.
Just a word. I don't know that Melania Trump has much opportunity to say anything either.
Exactly. I was going to say that too.
She's going to be totally...
Yeah. So, and if we are on, the lines of, I'd like to hear more from his wife, what about you, Donnie boy? What about Melania? We don't hear much from her when copied Michelle Obama's speech and how, she was a poor black African American growing up. No, I'm kidding. She didn't respond. His campaign team did. At least Mrs. Khan came out following the controversy. She said something herself with a logical reason. And what about Melania Trump's nude photos visa controversy now? Does none of that matter because she's not Muslim?
Oh my God. No, I think the Khan thing has been talked to death. That was another display of... I don't think he wants to be president. You would not put... he has no more feet to put in his mouth. He has really... it's like he's saying, I'm doing everything I can not to be elected president, because his actions, he's either a complete nutcase or he's playing a role for all the attention he's getting. But I don't think he's a sincere candidate for president of the United States.
So now people are making the comment saying, well, Trump was just attacked on his patriotism. He has the right, to defend himself. And CJ Pearson said that. I don't really agree with him necessarily on everything. Who is a teenage YouTuber and he does political commentary. So I wrote this down. So I agree Trump should be able to defend himself. However, he should have done it in a more respectful way. The point of having the Khan story out there was to tell Trump and his supporters that these are the types of people you want to ban from this country. These are the types of people you called terrorists. He gave up his life and saved many others for what he did. So when Donald Trump calls them out still and tries to stereotype them for saying the wife had nothing to say, you know how those Muslims are. He's going back on his xenophobic and ignorant ways. So let me see. So, again, I have another point. So Trump defends himself by saying, I've created thousands and thousands of jobs, tens of thousands of jobs, built great structures. I've had tremendous success. I think I've done a lot. Yes, that's great. But what about the contractors you didn't pay? What about the people who lost money at Trump College? What about the companies you bankrupt? He walked away scratch-free while screwing over his employees. On top of that, he got 5 deferments for the Vietnam War. So, he says, well, I had a high draft number, I was very lucky. That wasn't the truth. He got deferments. So he lied about the draft. But now at age 70, his doctor said he would be the healthiest president. So what about the ankle you were just deferred from the Vietnam War for? I guess it's all fine.
It got better after the war.
So, in conclusion, for someone who ran away from the war to attack someone who died for this country is absurd. The difference between the Khans attacking Trump and Trump attacking Khan is Donald Trump didn't sacrifice anything. His rich, privileged self has always been a coward. The Khan's son was a true patriot. One attack is relevant, the other is preposterous. Anything else you want to weigh in?
No, you said it all. Under an hour.
We got it under an hour. This was a
this.
long video. This is probably going to be posted on my main channel as a preview. To get more people to subscribe to my new channel. This video will also be over there. We had a lot of news stories, a lot of coverage, a lot of Donald Trump. Anything you want to say else before we go?
No, I've said it all and very much more profoundly than I could. But we're pretty much on the same page on most things. The TPP thing, that's way over my head.
Over my head.
So, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm grandmother. This is Jacob. Bye.
Oh, you're going to do the closing this
Yes,
time.
I am.
She's the new end host. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Bye.